And I think particular thanks to the many housing associations represented today. It shows how important you take your relationship with Southwark Council. So thank you for coming. I'll just go through formalities and then we'll get into the formal proceedings. So my name's Councillor Jason Ottery. I'm the chair of the Housing Scrutiny Commission. There are housekeeping that we just normally mention as normal. If there is a fire alarm, we don't expect any this evening. Please make your way to the nearest exit, and we'll go to an agreed assembly point, which will just be just behind this building, St. John's Churchyard, just off Durridge Street. But the council security staff will let you know where you need to go. Public toilets are located just as you come out on the left. If you make your way all the way down, it should be there. Proceedings are being live streamed on YouTube, so I'm sure that won't influence anything you say. But just for reference, and recording of the meeting will be available on YouTube afterwards. Members of the public are welcome to. So I'll just switch this off. Are welcome to record the meeting should they want to. You might find, and I should mention this, that some members of the public will attend because of the natural interest in this topic today. So unless you have to scurry away, I'm sure there'll be one or two individuals that may want to speak to individual housing associations here, but I can't see many members of the public here yet, but just flagging that. A copy of the council's protocol for reporting and filming is available on the council's website. Free Wi-Fi should you need it. And for members of the commission, if you just want to ask questions, you can raise your hand, and I will take note of the fact that you want to ask a question. We'll go to the formal aspect of this meeting. I've received apologies from Councillor Emily Tester and Catherine Rose. Are there any others? No. Voting members of, well, you don't normally vote, but members of the commission, do you just want to lift up your hands as we go through name by name? Councillor Richard Livingston, if you can introduce yourself.
Hello, Chair. I'm Councillor Richard Livingstone. I'm a Labour councillor for Old Kent Road Ward.
Thank you very much.
I'm Councillor Ketsia Harper and I'm an independent councillor for Faraday Ward.
Thank you.
Councillor Jane Salmon. I'm a Liberal Democrat for Surrey Docks Ward.
Councillor Barry Hargrove. I'm a Labour councillor for Peckham Ward.
Ina co-opted member, Leaseholders Forum.
Brendan O'Brien, the delegate from the TMO committee.
Thank you. And Councillor Jason Ottery, I'm a councillor in Camberwell, St. Giles. Sorry, notifications of any items that I deem urgent. There aren't any. Disclosure of interest and dispensation. Does any member wish to declare any interests? Yes, Councillor Harper.
Yes, Chair. I've been given legal advice that as I am a housing association tenant and the legal officer says that means I have a beneficial interest under law, and it means that I need to recuse myself from this item and recuse myself from the meeting and come back after this item.
Thank you. That's noted. And I should add, there are a number of members of this commission that can't be here for the same reason. But thank you, Barry Hargrove, Councillor Barry Hargrove, for attending. But just worth putting that on record.
Chair, it's not the same interest. You'll be released.
Okay, go for it.
But just for complete transparency, just to record the fact that I'm employed as senior caseworker for Miatta Fanbula MP. The reason I am raising that is I know that obviously a number of the housing associations have a separate relationship with her as Member of Parliament, so I just want that to be transparent.
Thank you. Important point to note. Thank you. Can we? Yes, Brendan.
Or I have a property that's falls under a TMO, and I think that TMO was invited to speak here tonight.
But that TMO is not here tonight. So all good. Thank you. We'll just go through the minutes. Can we approve the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 2nd of December, 2025? Please, members. Thank you. So we'll crack on with the main item on the agenda, which is our relationship with housing associations. So I should flag up front that I understand that a number of the housing associations have already been in touch with the director of housing here and some of the relevant cabinet members, and I understand that that will be an ongoing meeting and forum that you will have with the council going forward. That might happen every month or every quarter. I think that's to be decided. But I think the signal of intent from us here at Southwark Council is we want to build an open dialogue with housing associations because you are important partners. But in that dialogue with you will be constructive and challenging. Just because we want the best for all of our residents here in Southwark, and you as housing associations play a really important role in our ambitions for ensuring that housing in Southwark is as good as possible and the experience for residents as good as possible. So hopefully this is the trajectory that we hope to go on in having a constructive but challenging discussion with you to get the best for our residents. I think just for the record, it's worth highlighting that as Southwark, as a local authority, we set the housing strategy, yes, for the borough. We run our housing register and we own and manage a large number of properties. But I just think for the record, it's worth highlighting the relationship between us and the housing association and housing associations, which can be often misunderstood for the public. Housing associations are independent from the council. You're not-for-profit organisations. You manage social and affordable homes, and people are offered housing association homes in Southwark, often come through Southwark's choice-based letting system, even though the landlord isn't the council. But it's just worth highlighting that in no way, shape or form does Southwark Council, I guess, look over your affairs or are responsible for how housing associations operate. But we have a constructive relationship that's worth the public knowing. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just go around the table from left to right. If each housing association can just introduce themselves, and then very briefly, and then what will happen is you can just open up no more than 5 to 7 minutes, if being generous, about who you are, issues that we're really interested in as a commission around AWAB's law, damp and mold specifically, repairs and maintenance, and ASB and community safety. And then once we've gone round each housing association, we'll then open up for questions from members. Is that okay with everyone? Good. So from left to right, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are, which housing association you're from, and then we'll go back to you from the beginning to I guess, provide that preface.
Hi, I'm Michael Edwards. I'm Director for Reactive Repairs Contract Services from Southern Housing. I'm here with a colleague, Louise Palese, and she covers some resident services as well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Podmore. I'm the Director of Operations for the Guinness Partnership. I'm here with a colleague, Sarah Sargent, who covers the housing side of things as well. Thank you.
I'm Anika Bogle. I'm the Head of Operations at Notting Hill Genesis.
I am Neil Coyle's Assistant Director of Operations, also at Notting Hill Genesis.
Hi, good evening. James Devonshire, Regional Director of Housing for Clarion Housing Group.
Hi, I'm Francis Burrows, Executive Director of Customer and Operations for Wandle.
And I'm Sharon Carter, the Chief Executive of Hexagon Housing Association.
Hi, my name is Wells Chomatari. I'm from Peabody. I'm the Managing Director for Operations for South London. I'm here with my colleague, Eileen McGowan, who's Assistant Director for Repairs.
Hi, my name is Mark Batcher from the Hyde Group. I am Director of Property Services.
Good evening, everyone. Adam Frame, Head of Specialisms for London and Quadrant.
Thank you very much. Has everyone introduced their colleagues who are behind them, just for interest, just in case they need to come up and ask the questions? If you can come up very quickly, introduce yourselves as well. It'd be great to hear from you quickly.
Hi, I'm Vicky Holland. I'm Head of Special Projects and Sustainability at L&Q.
L&Q, thank you very much.
So I'm Bev Bennett, Head of Maintenance Services for the South Region for L&Q.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lisa Price. I'm the Head of Customer Resolution at L&Q.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Louise Plazy. I'm Director of Resident Experience for Southwark.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eileen McGowan, Assistant Director Repair Operations, Peabody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Yes, one more. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Sargent. I'm Group Director of Housing and Neighbourhoods at the Guinness Partnership.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So we'll go from right to left. If you can just, I think you've introduced yourself. If you can just tell us about your housing association and some of the interests that we as a commission have flagged ahead of the meeting. If you can just kind of rattle through that, and then obviously we'll come back to everyone for questions. We'll start with you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to start with ASB and community safety because this is my remit. So between 2025 to date, we've had 96 ASB cases. And we use the PEN category, which is...
Remind me, you're Adam from L&Q?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, good.
We use the PEN category, which is personal, environment and nuisance. And that's how we label ASB. And for some sort of figures, really, we have 48 personal cases, 29 nuisance cases and 12 environmental. And then there's 7 that fits in a other category. It's worth noting that we had 8 cases of domestic abuse and 2 cases of hate-related incidents. And that's the makeup of 96 cases. To date, we have resolved 101 ASB cases, which includes 6 domestic abuse cases and 3 hate-related incidents. Currently, we have 37 active ASB cases, which comprises of, well, the ones that are worth noting are 12 domestic abuse cases and then 7 noise nuisance cases. Can I pass over to my colleagues for the damp and mould stuff? Because they're the experts. Thank you.
So my other colleague do damp and mould. I'll do reactive repairs very quickly for you. Southwark is part of one of our neighbourhoods that we cover from the repairs team, and it's part of a larger neighbourhood called South. In the last Q1 to Q3 for Southwark specifically, we've had just over 6,900 repairs, and that's of a part of the region. As a region of South London, we're standing at over 159,500 repairs. So that sort of just gives an indicator of where Southwark is within kind of the whole region. We're currently running, we've improved on our turnaround times from last year to this year. So for our emergency completions, we're running at 1.6 days. We're running at 14.8 days for our 5-day jobs, and our routine repairs are coming in at just over 28 days at the moment. We're continuing to improve those. We're bringing a lot of new operatives into our teams. We've got an apprenticeship program, so we're bringing apprentices in that are helping us out with those to give us a succession and the commitment to our DLO and our team. So we're intending to keep growing our DLO.
Sorry,
So,
to demystify what acronyms mean. Tell me.
Direct labour organisation. Sorry, it's so used to just doing it in the office. So we complete our repairs as emergency, urgents and routines, as I say. And at the moment, our current Southwark figure for emergency is a 98% completion in SLA compared to 97% in the rest
So
of.
remind me what SLA is?
Oh.
Service level agreement.
Service level agreement.
I'm just saying for the members of the public that aren't quite familiar with acronyms, I understand what it means. But yeah.
So we're within our service level agreements. We're for our emergency repairs sitting at 98%. For our urgent repairs, we're sitting at 65%, and for our routine repairs at 60%. And again, these are things that we're trying to improve and work on consistently. So January, our overdue works and jobs, so that's every repaired job that's come into our system. We had 447 jobs that are in the timescales they should be in, and we had 472 jobs that were overdue. Can't give you the scale of how overdue they were because I haven't got that figure, but we have reduce those significantly again as well at this point. So our repairs team, we have a repairs team that looks after South of a manager, 4 supervisors and about 25 operatives that will be working in and around Southwark. And that's repairs. Okay.
Give my notes to Adam, so I'm just going to retrieve them. Okay, so I manage the damp and mould team. Okay, I manage the damp and mould team at L&Q, and with the introduction of AWEB's law at the end of October, 27th of October, we have now reviewed a lot of our processes and enhanced a lot of our systems to ensure that we can look to meet the new timeframes that are against us with the emergencies, the inspections and also the written summaries for residents within the tight timescales that we've been given within the law. So during the preparation time for AWEB's law, ahead of the go live, we did lots of training with our teams. We introduced a new change project group that actually worked with all of the organisation and our residents as well to ensure that we were communicating on both sides. So we've updated the damp and mould policy and procedures on our website, so our residents can see exactly what we do, the timescales that we're being held to, and what they can expect from us when they report a damp and mould case to us. We've written to our residents in our monthly newsletter to explain to them all about AWEB's law and what they can expect from us under the law, and how we can remedy any of the damp and mould cases. And we also have produced leaflets that we give to all of our surveyors that go out, and they have the leaflets, they hand the leaflets out at the time. And we also have our contact centre that when they're taking calls, they can give advice and send leaflets out as well. So we did a lot of work with our residents so that they are aware of how they can report that into us. But what we've also done internally is we've trained all of our staff, all of our frontline staff and any of our back office staff that speak to our residents. So we've trained over 2,050 colleagues. We had an iLearning module that takes them through exactly how our residents can report to us, what they need to do and what their responsibilities are. And we've had a 99.4% completion rate of that iLearn internal training. But we also did workshops with our neighbourhood staff and with our maintenance staff that are out on our estates and in our residents' homes, so that if they notice damp and mould, how they can report it as well, and how they can work with the residents to make sure they know how to report it. We've done lots of understanding your roles and responsibilities internally and how to identify hazards and what those hazards and new guidelines are. We then went live on the 27th of October with these new processes, with the new system. It's been a little bit challenging because obviously we had to change a lot of our systems to make sure that they were able to give us what we needed under the reporting. And the reporting's still not perfect, but we are getting there. But from a residents' point of view, all cases are logged. All cases are now case managed through to completion. So nothing leaves the damp and mold team and then before it goes on and it gets closed down. So as a whole, we are seeing higher cases being reported, but we are going through them and making sure that they are dealt with to the customer satisfaction.
Very much. Hi. I know you have a myriad of slides, but
Don't worry.
in
Don't
the
worry.
interest of time,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thank you. I did send a slideshow through to Adam. I'm not going to walk through it. I'm just going to pull out 5 things, but happy to take questions on any of the content. So my name's Mark Batchelor from the Hyde Group. We've got just under 3,000 properties in Southwark, and almost half of those are social rented. 5 things I wanted to go through is first AWABs, and I include damp and mold within that for May. So like many organisations you're going to speak to today, we are fully systemised, which means for us, as soon as a damp and mold call comes in, from wherever it comes in, it is immediately logged and then is tracked through the compliance of AWAB's law. Virtually straight away from the 27th of October, we had strong compliance against it. And in January, we actually hit 100% for attending to the emergency hazards, investigating the significant hazards, and raising the follow-on works promptly after that investigation. So we're very pleased with that compliance. The winter has been hard. So like many organisations, we've seen an increase in cases. We've been able to deal with those, and we've made sure that we have sufficient surveyors to get out there and start doing the investigations. So early days for us with AWABs, but so far it's positive. That doesn't mean we get everything right, but it is positive in terms of what we're trying to do. We are just about to start planning and systemising phase 2, and then after that we'll move on to phase 3. Phase 2 means there is approximately half of the hazards, which again we need to recognise and understand how we're going to deal with it. The system is relatively straightforward, and it will be for all hazards. So it will be triage, risk assess, and then get on and do the works. I'm just going to go briefly through the repairs. Strong repairs report performance, similar to L&Q. So we're getting to almost every emergency, and the urgents and routines, we're at 87 and 89% completion within the target. For urgents, that means 5 days. For routines, that means 28 days. And our average repair time for the routine repairs is 13 days. Our satisfaction sits at 80.5. Next thing I want to touch on is the ASB and community safety. We have 38 open cases at the moment. 12 are around verbal abuse. We have an area which is a particular hotspot at the moment, which has got 8 of those 12 cases in it. We are not tolerant of people abusing our teams at the moment, so we do take strong tenancy action. If that happens, that doesn't mean to say we are evicting people. We just make sure that people understand that our teams are there to be respected as well, and we're trying to treat our customers the same way. A little bit on the tenant consultation structures that you've asked about. So we operate through a core panel which we call Customer Voice, and we assist that with working groups. These are all made up of social housing tenants and leaseholders. They're there to design, scrutinise and monitor what we do. We back that up at operational level with a neighbourhood model, and fundamentally that means boots on the ground, so people out there talking to our customers and your tenants. In Southwark itself, we've got a manager called Bankoli, and we've got 4 neighbourhood officers, Umesh, Natalie, Joseph and Charlie. If we want further details, I'm happy to share those names and some contact details. Next thing I was quickly going to look at was just the service charge and the shared owners. You've asked us what we do. High level, we obviously produce the annual statements, the estimates and the bills. If we've got any areas that have got particular issues, so particular issues for us in the past would have been the cost of heating properties, especially where we've had to buy the gas and the prices have absolutely soared recently. We will actually attend clinics and go and visit and explain that situation to our customers. We operate a live FAQs, so frequently asked questions. And if customers want to challenge anything that we're doing on service charge, it's a fully compliant inquiries process where we aim to give them the answers within 30 days. And I was going to pause there. That's my 5 things.
Thank you. We'll come back to that topic around service charge and shared owners service charge. I think it's an important topic for all housing associations. So we'll come back on that one. But thank you very much.
Okay.
Hi there. My name is Wells Chomatara from Peabody. So I'm going to pick maybe 4 items that I'm going to talk about. Just give you an overview of our presence in Southwark, and then I'll talk about community safety, resident engagement, and then I'll touch briefly on complaints. So in terms of Peabody, within Southwark, we have about 4,400 homes. We are organized in a regional model within Peabody. So overall, we have about 108,000 homes, 108,000 homes across Greater London and the counties. Within Greater London, we are organized into 3 regions. And so I cover South, which is everything south of the river within Greater London. And we across 11 boroughs, and Southwark, within Southwark there, we have 4,400 homes. Just to point out of all those, the 4,000 homes, more than 1,000 of those homes are pre-1920. So that naturally, presents quite a challenge for us. It needs more care and investment. So I just wanted to give that, the committee a sense of our presence in Southwark. So as I pointed out, in terms of our offer to residents, we built a very localized model. So where residents know their local teams. So within the South region, within Southwark, we'll have neighbor manager, area managers, community safety managers who cover areas of around 600 homes. So there will be dedicated teams, so our residents get to know their managers and the caretakers and the cleaners, as well as their community safety teams. And again, our aim is simple: provide a service to residents, a simple service that residents actually want. But also we give them the choice of how they contact us. We have the contact center, but also within our notice boards, we'll have posters of our housing teams, and you could, within that, you can book appointments directly. We have Book Time With Me QR codes in our notice boards where residents can actually just book appointments with our teams. Just around repairs, I'll touch on repairs as well. As my colleague pointed out around Hours Law, we'd already been working to very fast timescales in terms of emergencies. So we've strengthened that further, and we've recruited specialist staff, Bristol contractors and surveyors, so who are helping our residents understand how to report. So we want to make reporting simpler to our residents, but also dealing with those repairs quickly. In terms of the volume, since January, we've had about 13,400 repairs within Southwark. We currently have about 1,700 which are currently open. Takes us about 39 days to complete a repair. And obviously the most common repairs in residents' homes are related to plumbing, heating and electrics. At the moment, communal repairs do pose a challenge for us, as it will with other housing associations. And at the moment, we have about 639 open communal repairs, which average about 121 days to complete. Damper mold, I'll just be quick, and this will be just the numbers. We have at the moment 97 damper mold cases in Southwark. Over the last 6 months, we've received about 104 cases, including 21 since Hours Law came into effect. On average, it takes us about 38 days to resolve a damper mold case completely. Just touching on community safety, there's some slides there with some numbers that just gives you a sense of the scale. So over the past year, we've managed about 101 community safety cases, including domestic abuse. At the moment, we have about 43 cases, and as you can see in the graph, just gives you a sense of the volume of the cases. Noise being the most prevalent, as you can see that we're dealing with, and I'll touch on resident engagement. Very key for Peabody. We have a resident-led panel and its subgroups which shape policy, and they also kind of help us around complaints, learning, home ownership, and communications. Regionally within the South, we have a South Regional Forum, which was co-designed with residents. So they help us with kind of shaping and designing services. So they've been influencing a number of improvements that we've been making within the region, like communal repairs, reporting, and helping us with team visibility feedback on our teams on the ground. Locally within South London, we have about 21 recognized housing TRAs, which are tenant resident associations. But in Southwark, there are 4, but we're not limited to working with recognized residents groups. Any informal groups can engage with us and where there are issues on the estates, and usually we work through the action plan. And then lastly, I'll touch on complaints, just volume. At the moment, complaints in Southwark, we're about 71 open complaints. Of those 71, 50 are stage 1, 21 are stage 2, and 3 of those have been referred to the Housing Ombudsman. Yeah, and that's it from us. Yeah.
My name is Sharon Carter. I'm from Hexagon Housing Association. I want to start off just sharing some background about the association, and then I'll focus on 3 areas that overlaps with the interests of Hexagon residents that you might want to hear about. So Hexagon is a small to medium association, depending on how you calculate it. We've got 4,500 homes. Our largest concentration of homes are in Southwark, where we have 1,730 homes, which makes up around 38% of our overall stock. Our housing is largely social rent. We do have a very, very small proportion of affordable rent. 68% are in that category, and we have a mixture of tenant-led housing co-ops, some supported accommodation, a minuscule amount of commercial, and also a number of shared ownership and leasehold properties. We have 36 estates. We didn't touch upon it in terms of your brief, but pleased to report to you, we only have 1 high-rise building in Southwark over 18 metres, which has been remediated in the London Bridge ward. We have 7 11 to 18 metre buildings. Only one of those has been categorised as high risk, and that has been prioritised. We expect that to be completed. That's Alfred Court in South Bermondsey. That is due to be completed by March of 2028. All of the others are categorised as very low risk, so we don't expect to be expending anything more than the normal amounts there. So as far as Hexagon stock is concerned, we're very much on the way of remediating our properties. We have a very robust resident structure. We have a residents, keep calling it residents engagement groups, a residents influence group, which is the main body, and we also have a repairs group. We also have Scrutiny members and estate champions who provide that local information which feeds up through the repairs group and also the resident influence group. The reason why I'm starting there is because those groups have identified 3 areas that are of priority importance for them, and that is repairs, complaints, and ASB. So I want to focus a bit on the repairs aspect and also ASB, because there are some challenges. I'm not here to just give you the good news story. I'm also here to share with you some of the challenges that we have. So what we see as positive is actually we've got reasonably good repairs performance. Our emergencies are completed 98.7% of our emergencies are completed within target time. Our non-emergencies is 96.5%. We have customer satisfaction of just under 65%. We do outsource our repairs to contractors. That's not the perfect model, we know, but that's the arrangement that we do have at the moment, so we need to manage that well. Around 0.3% of our transactions result in a complaint. We are introducing borough data on our repairs from January. What we do know is the median, in terms of comparisons with the median for Southwark's residents are about +2% above the median in terms of our performance. For damp and mould, 79.4% of cases are resolved within 21 days. We still have some way to go to hit the other targets in terms of, the communication within 3 days and the emergencies. Those are areas for performance improvement for us. One of the areas that I want to just dwell on for a moment is antisocial behaviour. And that is one of the areas that is more challenging for us. Of 1,000 tenancies, we have an average of 21.3 cases. In the last financial year, it takes us on average 146 days to resolve an antisocial behaviour case. And the satisfaction is just over 50%. There are a number of things that I actually wanted to take this time to talk to you about, because there are issues that I think we share in terms of some of the challenges. For most of our one-bedroom, our smaller accommodation that is let via nominations from the council, we can guarantee 9 times out of 10 that those properties are going to be let to somebody with very, very high support needs and multiple support needs. And that is one of the factors that influences how we manage antisocial behaviour. There are some residents that's vulnerability is quite high and actually might need to be in supported accommodation, but they're within the community, and that presents some challenges. Alongside that, and you will know this better than us, that there has been an erosion in your funding, and therefore the mental health services, social services that are there to support, and the police have also changed their approach. So they're not readily available for us to call out. There are delays of up to 2 years in terms of the court system. So staff can get very frustrated when they are trying to get things resolved through the court system, but they can't push it much further than that. And also there are things like undercroft parking and...
Do you have a phone on the table? Oh, yes.
Is that yours?
Yeah, really sorry. Peabody interrupting.
Yeah. There are challenges in terms of maintaining estates that have got undercroft parking and then being especially susceptible for people within the homeless community who might want to access those areas as warm places. So they all present challenges. But I wanted to just focus on that area a bit because it is an area of priority for our residents. We're working very closely with them to try to improve those things, but it is an area of great complexity, and I'm sure that you all have that within your caseload. In terms of shared owners and service charges, like others here, it's the usual annual audit information, and also leaseholders can request detailed invoices on demand, and we have to comply with the legislation with that. We have got a really good rent and service charge manager in at the moment who's doing some fabulous work and has really improved our responses to our customers when they've made those requests. And I think I'll stop there, and I'll take questions on any other issues you might be interested in discussing.
Thank you very much. And I think just on that point, we will look at the issue around contractors, which I know is quite a big issue for members around the table. But yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Francis Burrows from Wandle. So Wandle, we've got about 7,500 homes across South London, of which 1,470 are in Southwark. And of those, 1,124 are social rent, 333 shared ownership, and the remainder, there's a couple of fully leasehold properties and some affordable rent, but the vast majority being social rent. All of our blocks in Southwark have got a stock condition survey within the last 5 years. 90%, just over 90% of dwellings have had the survey within the last 5 years as well. And we're 100% on our compliance. So in all the big six across all of our properties within the borough as well. So starting off with damp and mould. In 2024, we created a new approach and a project to create a whole new service around damp and mould to ensure that we could reach the point of compliance with Arab's law, and that came in last year. So as part of doing that, we've had a customer group as a part of that whole project to help to set the policy, the procedure. They've helped with the leaflets and the information, and also recruiting the staff team as well. So we have a team of surveyors, we've got coordinators, we've got dedicated operatives to do the mould washes as well. So since the legislation came in October, we've been fully compliant with that. The only point where we had 4 mould washes that were out of timescale was where we had difficulty gaining access to the property, but they were all done within the next following 2 days of that as well. So in terms of caseload, we saw the usual increase that we'd expect to see over the winter. But this year we're down by 70% on the actual caseload compared to last year. So we've been able to get in much more quickly in dealing with a lot of the sort of more significant property issues that we'd experienced before that point as well. Repairs has been my biggest focus over the last year. We're very aware that our performance around repairs was not where it needed to be, and we've been undertaking a full transformation of the repair service that's currently underway. So that includes a new job management system, recruiting new operatives, retraining the whole staff team, and a full reinduction programme for the repairs team as well to make sure they've got a much stronger focus on the customer service element of it. And again, we've recruited a repairs customer panel who have been involved in shaping that whole service. They've set the new service standards and then been involved within the full end-to-end process to redesign that. And as a result of that, service is improving. So we're currently at about 55% satisfaction, whereas last year it was just under 51%. We're now meeting 89% of routine repairs done within timescale, and 94% of emergency repairs within timescale as well now. So again, so a significant improvement compared to last year. The first time fix is now up to 74%, which was at 47% before last year as well. And the end-to-end sort of the full repairs time, the average time is now 13.7 days for a routine repair, which was over 30 days last year. So we've made significant inroads on that. Still more to go around that, but we're making the right kind of progress for that. And certainly sort of the customer feedback and the engagement side of that has really helped to shape that as well. In terms of ASB, I have to echo what Sharon's also said around that, where there's particular issues around sort of the undercroft parking, bin stores, and issues around homelessness. There's been a big issue, particularly around Peckham and Camberwell as well. We've had a lot of sort of more significant and long-running ASB cases recently. We currently have 32 open ASB cases within Southwark. 3 are in the legal proceeding stage at the moment. 3 have used for closure as well. The majority are sort of below 90 days and sort of below 180 days around that, but there are some that are going over the 2-year period as well. And that's both been experiencing those issues around finding it really hard to engage with SLAM, making sure we've got the right relationship with the police to be able to deal with the issues, because we're finding the majority.
SLAM being the South London and
Maudsley. Yes, sorry. So that level of engagement has been really challenging as well. So where people have been discharged from those services, essentially have been handed back to us, and we don't have the resource to be able to engage effectively with some of those tenants as well. So I think there's a potential to really develop those partnerships. In terms of our customer engagement framework, we've put in place a lot of new structures around that. So we've got customer representatives at board and committee level. We have a customer engagement panel that meets every month, and we've also now created a homeowners panel for shared owners as well. So they do our scrutiny from both a leaseholder and a rental customer perspective. And then we've got our customer panels separately to that within each of the main service improvement projects as well. We're currently reviewing our housing model at the moment. So at the moment, we've got patches for housing officers with about 450 homes. We're looking to change the role of the housing officer so they spend more time in the community with smaller patch sizes, but having a greater accountability of the homes and the tenancies within that. So they will be doing more of the door knocking, more of the engagement with local partnerships as well within their particular areas. So that's sort of the next sort of project over the next 12 months on that. And our corporate strategy has three main pillars: right homes, right services, right support. And that right support element very much links into the ASB, the housing model. How do we provide the right kinds of services when we think about the complexity of the people who's coming into our homes at the moment? Because 75% last year had come out of homeless services or temporary accommodation. And we've been finding high rates of mental health issues, people really struggling with cost of living, that's seeing people living in poverty, and actually how all of those different points come together and make it really challenging for them. So we're thinking about and working with them to create some different support structures. So we're very aspirational about how do we sort of revolutionise our services, but also think about our role together as housing associations and with the local authority to make sure that we can create the right kinds of structures, because as a relatively small organisation, we don't have the same level of resource as some of the larger players, but together, how do we share out some of those things so that we can work effectively within the local area?
Thank you. And I think this forum is a good forum, along with the one that the council officers and yourselves are developing and fostering, and sharing information and understanding what works well for one organisation that could work well at another. So hopefully through this discussion today, there can be a learning exercise too. So yeah, it's an important point. Yes.
Thank you. James Devonshire from Clarion Housing. So Clarion Housing is the largest provider of social housing in the country, owning and managing around 138,000 properties. These are split across 5 regions, and the London Borough of Southwark is one of 170 local authorities that we work with up and down the country. Within Southwark, we own just shy of 1,300 homes, 700 of which are general needs. And these contribute to the 32,000 homes we own across South London. Some of you would have been aware of the regulatory involvement and inspection we had this year, the planned inspection. So Clarion received a C2 consumer standards grade, an upgraded V1 financial viability rating, and retained its G1 governance rating. And while this confirms compliance, the C2 grading is recognised as a signal that further improvement is required, particularly around consistency of service delivery and resident experience. It's our aim to achieve a C1 reactive upgrade within the next 12 months. Over the past 12 months, we've been embarking on a change programme called Connect. So very similar to all of our other housing associations here, there's lots of change in the sector, but this is a large-scale change for the organisation that's aimed at improving accountability, efficiency and customer outcomes. Progress to date on that programme is that we've introduced omni-channel access, we've restructured our repairs and estate services teams, and we've created damp and mould teams to deal with AWAB's law. Structural changes within the repairs service concluded in December, providing clear management lines, smaller teams and dedicated resources for voids, disrepair and complex cases. Throughout 2026, the Housing Management Service will undergo changes in accordance with the Connect programme. So I'll be able to update you all at future meetings on how that's progressing. We are more than just a landlord, or we try to be anyway, as I'm sure we all do. Through our development arm, Latimer, we've developed over 1,700 homes in the past year, and our charitable foundation, Clarion Futures, helps people and communities in what is one of the country's largest social investment programmes. In the past 12 months, Clarion Futures has delivered an estimated £128 million in social value, helped 1,500 people into work, and built up a network of over 300 employers who are involved in our national jobs and training programme. Clarion Futures are working heavily within the London Borough of Southwark as well at the moment. In terms of the key figures for this evening, so antisocial behaviour, we currently have 67, or we've had 67 cases reported within the past 12 months. The main drivers being offensive behaviour and serious threat of violence. So to put that into context, 67 cases in 12 months for the South London region as a whole, 172 cases received in December. So figures and numbers are relatively low for Southwark. We have a dedicated tenancy specialist team overseeing these cases, and they are supported by our housing officers. They're not lucky enough to have patch sizes of 400. They're more around 1,000 properties each. Again, that's what we're looking to readdress as part of the Connect programme. In terms of repairs, so just shy of 5,000 repairs raised within the past 12 months. And the main drivers for these were leaks, electrical and drain repairs, which made up the majority of them. In terms of performance, first time fix is currently at 84.19%. Average number of days to complete routine repairs is 20.98 days, with 96.53 within the service level agreements, and emergency repairs completion is currently at 98.63%. A couple more items. So disrepair, as of the week commencing 19th of January, there were 28 open disrepair claims in Southwark, which accounts for about 2% of the stock. 3 new cases were started within the last 3 months, all of which were for the same property. So we have a team dedicated to actively managing those cases as well. Since the introduction of hazard reporting under AWAB's law, 149 hazards work orders have been raised. There are currently 22 live hazard work orders. All works have been delivered by an in-house team, which was set up as part of the Connect programme. And each case has been assigned a resident liaison officer who supports them through that work, helps them understand what work is required, when it's required, and how it's going to be undertaken. And then finally, satisfaction. This is a regional measure. We haven't broken it down into local authority yet, but that will be happening. So the overall regional housing satisfaction saw an increase of 3.9% between October and December to 78.8%. And overall satisfaction with Clarion Response, which is our in-house repair service for South London, decreased slightly, but is still running reasonably high at 90.2%.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Notting Hill Genesis.
Hi, I'm Anika Vogel, Head of Operations. Just to provide some context, so at Notting Hill Genesis, we operate on a local officer contact model. So each of our residents has one point of contact, which is their housing officer or their property manager, and that's who they can go to for any type of query. Notting Hill Genesis, we have 2,051 homes within Southwark. Of those, 959 are general needs housing, so permanent rented housing, and 1,092 of those homes are leasehold. Just moving on to our response to AWAB's law and the steps that we've taken to comply with it. So in the run-up to AWAB's law coming into effect, we appointed a specialist damp and mould consultant who reviewed our policies and procedures, and we also introduced a dedicated damp and mould task force to handle and oversee repairs related to damp and mould. We proactively did a wide-scale review of cases, so this involved us sending out 11,000 messages to all of our residents who had ever had a case of damp and mould, just to check if it has reoccurred or if there are any new reports of damp and mould. We have partnered up with our main repair contractor, Waits, to formalise a dedicated team of multi-skilled operatives who focus on mould remediation. Longer term, we work towards embedding this service directly within the organisation. We have a dedicated damp and mould hotline, which we've created, which is a consistent gateway for reporting of cases for residents, so they can contact us directly so that we have clear oversight and accountability for any reports that are coming in. Our action to date has resulted in really good progress in tackling damp and mould. So from June 2024 to the end of July this year, we significantly reduced the number of homes affected by damp and mould from 2,635 cases just to 1,952 cases, and we currently have no outstanding Category 1 cases. In the last financial year, we visited 79.9% of our homes within 10 days of a report of damp and mould, compared to 71.5% in the previous year. From the 11,000 messages that we sent out, as a proactive step to review our damp and mould cases, 1,156 damp and mould repairs were raised, and 239 of them came from households with at least one resident who had a vulnerability. Moving on to repairs. So our standard repairs time in Southwark is 84.1% and our target is 87%. We also have the new repairs contracts going live soon, which we hope will help to improve that area. And for emergency repairs in Southwark, our performance stands at 87.9% and our target is 97%, which again, hopefully the new repairs contracts will help us to improve on that. Moving on to ASB. So for ASB cases raised year to date, we've got 14, and for safeguarding, it's 9 cases. With regards to ASB, so we rolled out extensive ASB training for all of our frontline officers and management team as well. We do regularly review and update our policies and procedures in relation to ASB as well. We recently produced an ASB case review leaflet, which we make visible and available to all residents by erecting them on notice boards, so that residents know that if they're not happy with how an ASB case has been handled, there are steps to kind of encourage us to work with other agencies to resolve the issue. Our ASB procedure includes a risk matrix for staff so that there's clear guidance on what steps staff should follow, whether that's low, whether it's been, I guess, scored as a low, medium or high risk case. And then I guess in preparation for the crime and policing bill, we know that that's going to introduce cuckooing as a crime. So in response to that, we have also introduced a cuckooing procedure and a cuckooing risk assessment to help staff handle those cases. The nature of our ASB cases relate to, the majority of them relate to neighbour disputes and noise concerns, with a very few number linked to any serious safeguarding risks. So they are typically low level. Our policy does state that we aim to resolve all of our ASB cases within 3 months. So that's what we work towards. And during the reporting period for 25-26, we only had one ASB case reported as a hate crime. And in line with standard practice, our incidents are recorded as hate related where the complainant perceives it as such, and then it's subsequently investigated. And then I just wanted to touch on service charges lastly. So traditionally, NHG have always engaged with residents on service charge estimates and budgets. Particularly when there's going to be a really large increase, we do a targeted consultation with our residents so that they can have oversight and I guess that transparency to be able to plan and, you know, make sure that we are keeping our service charges affordable. On our CRM system that we use, we have a specific service charge inquiry case type, which is closely monitored by our service charge team and our local officers. So if leaseholders or any residents have any queries in relation to their service charges, that case will be monitored closely and then a sufficient response provided. We also have recently started reporting on our Section 22 requests that come in. So where a resident puts in a request to review the invoices and supporting documents relating to their year-end service charge accounts, we aim to invite residents in to our offices to review those documents within the 30-day legislative timeframe. And yeah, we always provide an itemised breakdown of our service charge costs for transparency, and that's for proposed budgets as well as year-end expenditure as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Ben Podmore, I'm the Director of Operations for the Guinness Partnership. So Guinness nationally currently manage and own around about 75,000 properties, and we've heavily invested in the approach to our ABS law, not just over kind of the last 12 months, but in recent years. So some of the key elements that we've really targeted is we've strengthened both our capacity and our capability. There's been significant investment in people, training, specialist roles to improve hazard identification, diagnosis and resolution. That's equated to around about £2.8 million worth of investment. We've updated our policies, so we've aligned our policies and along with compliance. Policies have been fully updated to meet our WAB's law requirements, including a dedicated damp and mould policy, which also includes future proofing for further rollout of our WAB's law throughout 2026 into 2027 with additional phases. We've enhanced our systems and our process controls. We've improved our front-end triage process. We've also included and rolled out video diagnostics. We've added new case management platform for us to be able to track hazards from initial job being raised and reported by the resident all the way through to completion. And we're actually managing that with a centralised plans works coordinator team. So it's a dedicated team that's actually managing each individual case under Awab's law from start all the way through to the finish. We've been clear and we've legally aligned our response times in line with Awab's law, really targeting what that means from an emergency point of view and a significant hazard time frame. And we've set that out exactly in line with Awab's law, targeting kind of the key areas in terms of attendance, making safe work starting, and following up with written summaries out to residents, keeping them informed of progress as well. We've been proactive in our resident engagement and monitoring. We've had consistent contact channels we've implemented alongside the planned works coordinator teams, but we're also looking at what else is out there in terms of IoT devices and technology that will help both be proactive in our approach, identify risks before they actually become a risk, so we can get out proactively and resolve them. And then in the more severe cases, what technologies are available to help address the more serious causes alongside decants to minimise impact to residents, etc. We've also structured a follow-up at 3 month, 6 month, 9 month and 12 month intervals to make sure that we are capturing any repeat or recurring incidents of damp and mould or other hazards in line with residents. We've had a vulnerability-focused hazard assessment, so we've had structured triage framework incorporating household vulnerabilities, severity and location of hazards, and we've also widened our assurance and our governance out. We've had an independent external audit undertaken that's provided assurance on our readiness and our compliance, and we've also updated our complaint processes aligned with the Housing Ombudsman Code as well. In terms of responsive repairs, on a national basis, we're currently delivering emergency repairs on 96% completed on time. And then when we drill down into individual performance from a Southwark point of view, from a routine repairs perspective, we're delivering works at an average of around about 11.9 days. And we are completing a significant amount on target. Works orders raised that we've had since April, we've had 1,753 works orders raised to date, of which 1,387 have been completed, and the remainder are all sat in WIP and they're currently being managed through the process. And we've also seen a significant reduction in our overdue works orders, which we have really been targeting over the last 9-12 months, which has seen a reduction of around about 33%. How that compares to kind of a wider London delivery model. As I said, Southwark, we're currently delivering an average of around about 11.9 days for routine repairs against an average of 14.2 days across the wider London region. From a damp and mould perspective, we've had 162 damp and mould orders raised to date, of which 130 are completed and 32 are currently sat in WIP that we're still going through the progress, so works in progress. I will hand over to my colleague Sarah just on the housing side.
Thank you. I'll sit back a bit. Thank you. Thank you. I'll start with the ASB side. We changed our approach to ASB in the middle of 2024 and we adopted a hybrid model. So we have a team of what we call Safe Neighbourhoods officers who operate across all of our patches, supporting our customer liaison officers on the more complex cases and also dealing with hotspot areas. So across Southwark, we have a number of hotspots in our schemes in Delaune Street, Pages Walk, Snowsfield and Kennington. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are ASB hotspots, but they are quite politically active, and we have a lot of probably contact from yourselves as well as MPs around those particular schemes. So we take a holistic approach to what's going on, work very closely in partnership with yourselves, with the police to try and take preventative action and address that. We've got 55 cases have been reported in the last 12 months. We think it's underreported when we look at our cases in Southwark and London in general compared to some of our other regions. And we believe that from what residents do tell us, sometimes they don't want to report because they're afraid of consequences. There's other things going on, so we have to try and encourage with engagement to try and unearth that. We do have around typically the high profile cases tend to be more around noise nuisance, harassment, intimidation, verbal abuse, those types of cases, as well as quite a lot of environmental around fly tipping, which is quite a big issue for us nationally as well. Just to talk a bit about resident engagement as well, we do have a national customer committee that reports into our board, and then we have regional customer panels, one in London, and then at a local level we work very closely with tenant resident associations, as well as actually taking a proactive approach at a local level through resident groups, etc., to try and really work with and listen to our residents across the board. So I will stop there.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Southern Housing, and then we'll take a 5 to 7 minute break, just so that you can all breathe in readiness for the questions.
Thank you. Michael Edwards, Southern Housing. We've got a massive presentation here, but I'm not going to go through everything. I'm going to take some high level details out. So Southern Housing in Southwark, we've got around 3,500 properties, and it's our 6th most numerous local authority area. Around half of our homes are general needs social rented with shared ownership, social leasehold also making up a sizable proportion. We've had a long-standing presence in the borough, and we're still adding homes to the area. The latest in Glengall Road, North Peckham. We're working with the Mayor of London on and HG Construction to deliver 154 affordable homes and 16 open market sale homes in the Glengall Rise site. Other recent developments delivering hundreds of new homes include Parkhouse Street, New Kent Road, and Ilderton Road. So just on our Awaab's Law, and I'll wrap this up with damp and mould as well. Similar approach to a lot of what's already been said. So we've a dedicated damp and mould team, which we set up in 2024, and it started very small and quickly grew. And we started measuring the compliance against Awaab's Law from April last year. So we've been on a steep learning curve, and we've seen massive improvements, and our results are really strong at the moment. And we're heading into phase 2 quite soon. We're looking at designing a similar sort of system and process for phase 2, and then into phase 3. Repairs response times in the borough. So in December 25, we achieved 87.3 of emergency repairs within 24 hours. Compliance in Southwark compared to a group wide of 80.7. In December 25, 64.9 of our routine repairs were completed within 20 days in Southwark. And so far in this financial year, we have completed 58.74 of routine repairs within 20 days within Southwark. Damp and mould, I'll just touch on that. There's across 24-25, there were 2,562 damp and mould cases in London. Of these, 223 were in Southwark, which is 11.49 of the total. Southwark makes up 15.4% of our London homes.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Which bit?
Of the total amount in London, how much was made up in Southwark? Sorry,
okay, so just over 2,500 damp and mould cases in London. Of these, 223 were in Southwark, which is 11.49% of the total.
Thank you, perfect, because you said 225 and then 222 or 23 was in Southwark, so I was trying to work out the maths.
Sorry. It's probably the accent. I've lost my train of thought now. We've had 145 new damp and mould cases in Southwark, and we're working on 85 active cases. ASB and community safety. Southern Housing residents can report ASB by phone, online service as well as writing and in person. Our approach to ASB, all ASB relating to general needs residents is dealt with by our regional ASB teams. Good neighbourhood management issues are dealt with by our housing team, and our tenancy sustainment team deal with all domestic abuse reports, and they're supported by safeguarding team as well. There's a lot of numbers on ASB which we can share this presentation afterwards. I don't want to go into too much detail. We have a resident governance structure, which again I think others have mentioned. We have regional residents panels. All of that feeds into what we do as a business. And just back onto repairs, we're in the middle of a transformational project to improve efficiency and align, obviously, with AWAB's law. And we do have contractors that delivers a lot of our services, but we also have a lot of DLO, direct labour organisation services that are delivered. I think it's just shy of 70% of our repairs are delivered in-house, which is a good place to be, but we want to increase that. And then I'll touch just briefly on section 20 if my iPad can catch up. Luckily, I've got a hard copy. Told you it was a big presentation. Right. So communicating shared owner service charges. Service charges have a template booklet that's issued to shared owners and all leaseholders when the estimated service charges are set for the forthcoming financial year. Booklet's been reviewed via our resident scrutiny panels, which I mentioned earlier on, including shared owners, to ensure it provides transparency of service charges and their costs. An explanation of which each cost heading means, etc. So the costs are broken down with both monthly and annual costs to support ongoing financial planning, with signposting of where to obtain support and advice in the event of needing help with payments. Any accompanying FAQ sheet that supports further information for shared owners. We've got a service charge transformation project that's focusing on improving all service charge related communications. And we've also produced a service charge glossary to explain any name changes for individual heads of charge from the previous year to the current year, supporting shared owners, etc. Shared ownership is not my thing, as you can probably tell. I'm repairs. We do have a colleague here with in terms of housing. So happy to take any questions into those subjects.
Cool. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back for questions if that's okay with everyone. Thank you. waiting for one more member to come back, and then we'll proceed. Yeah. Oh. Do you know where Ina is? We're waiting for Ina. Great. So thanks everyone. So we'll go into questions. I should actually mention we have the Director of Housing right at the back, Hakeem. Thank you for coming from Southwark Council. So for those who haven't said hello to him, please say hello to him. But he sat quietly at the back. But thank you for coming, Hakeem. So yeah, we'll go into questions from members. I have a raft of questions, but I'll reserve mine for now. But members who have any questions, if they want to, who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to start, Chair.
Go for it.
Okay.
Councillor Salmon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentations. And I think one of the encouraging parts is that everybody is aspiring to do better. And I think that applies to us as well. But we have such a huge mountain, and yours are lower mountains, but still aspiring to do better is excellent. One of the points that when I first became a councillor and we realised, you know, we had housing association places, the attitude was they don't have to listen to councillors. So people would say on the doorstep, oh, I've been speaking to my housing officer, oh, nothing's getting done, all of this. And we would only be able to say, well, what's your housing officer's name? Can you give us a name? Oh, they don't respond, you know, the usual that happens even with us. So it's not a criticism, but it would be really helpful if each ward, and like I say, these are general questions, they're not in any individual, each ward had the contact that they would need to use. Now, if you want to use a generic email address that's councillors at Peabody at Wandle, whatever, that's absolutely fine. But one of our roles is to be the voice between the resident and whomever. So most of the time, majority of the time, it's between us and the council. But when it comes to housing associations, they are our residents. And do not be mistaken, it's not that we believe that the residents are always right, but the situations, as you already know, become far worse when somebody feels they're not listened to, or nobody's going back to them saying, actually, this is because of X, Y, and Z. So it would be incredibly helpful if we could all know who we write to. Not saying we'll give it out to the residents at all. We want to take obviously all the credit for anything that's done well. But it would be so useful in our areas, because in Surrey Docks, we have a few housing associations, and literally you go into this block and it belongs to one housing association, literally move next door into an identical and it belongs to a different housing association. So it'd be very useful. One of the questions, thank you, if that could happen, that would be grand. One of the questions is also, could we have oversight of what is received by your residents to understand the different levels of repairs? So I know when you say urgent, I'm sure I've worked on call centres where what someone has described to me in the first phone call is something dripping. And when I say, well, actually, we won't be coming out for that because it's just a drip under your, and then I hear one of my colleagues taking the same phone call behind where they're told it's gushing now, it's gushing. But it's about how you respond and what your residents understand is an urgent repair, and what will go in what category. And I presume you have call centres for most of it. I suspect some of it can be done on email, but I suspect most of it's call centres. So if we can see what your residents, so we don't get their expectations too high, or say to them, oh no, goodness, this should have been, you know, dealt as an urgent repair, you know, just so we have some knowledge. We're there to support you as well. We're not, you know, but it is our job to help that resident to move on if they're not able to move on. And what else do I have? Oh, the other question was, and it could be answered by, do you have anybody who goes out and checks repairs? I know you can say 93% are done, but does anyone go and just make sure it's a good job and that it's not going to recur? We have this as well. We have it where it's down as done, and then someone comes back 2 days later and say it fell off, you know, or something like that. And you raise another repair, but in fact it's related to the previous repair. If you could, I mean, most of you are nodding saying you do have someone that goes out and just makes sure, maybe randomly, I'm sure you can't go out to everyone, but randomly goes out. That's a good thing. And I think for the moment, that's everything.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So could we quickly go around and explain to us what is the process for members, so elected members, getting in touch with you? I know it differs from organization to organization, but if you can just answer that very quickly in no more than 10-15 seconds, we'll go from left to right.
Yes, so we have a dedicated email address, mp-inquiries@Southern Housing, and we have a dedicated MP inquiries team that hands it off to the director that for whatever that is pertaining to, and then they deal with it with their local team. And if it's a repair issue, and sometimes there's housing issues involved in it as well, and it's multifaceted, we have what we call a local link. So that then filters to the local link, who's a housing officer or area manager that understands the priorities within a particular community or region, and they can work alongside the repairs colleagues to make sure that we cover everything off and it's to a satisfactory standard. We have a service level agreements as well to answer those inquiries.
Okay, so that's Southern. So you have a dedicated email.
Yeah.
And then that gets filtered to a director.
So they'd equally feel comfortable with a councillor asking?
Yes, it's for councillors and MPs.
Thank
you.
It's just called MP inquiries though.
Good. Notting Hill Genesis?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated MP inquiries inbox at Notting Hill Genesis as well. I do have a couple of ops managers who cover Southwark, so I can share their details direct so you can copy them in. But when the MP inquiry comes in, it gets logged on our system with a case reference, and we aim to respond to that within 10 days.
Yep, Guinness.
Thank you. It's fine. I know, sorry. We'll keep mixing it up. Very much like Southern, we have MP inquiries at guinness.org.uk, which again is for councillors and MPs as well. However, we do have regional heads of customer service, and I will share after the meeting the details so that you have a regional contact that you can get in touch with, and they'll make sure that the right people are dealing with your inquiry.
Thank you, Clarion.
Keep it short. We have exactly the same as everybody else.
Okay.
And we'll share the detail.
Wandle.
Same again, it's the MP and councillor email as well, but again, happy to introduce you to the housing officers as well.
It's a Hexagon.
Ours only differs in that it's the customer services, but I like the idea of the MP inquiry, so I might steal that. But it's our policy that the director of operations has to own all MP and councillor inquiries and work with his team to get them resolved.
Peabody, thank you.
Yeah, so we have a councillors and MP dedicated email as well. But in my area, if it's South London, you can email me and I'll make sure that you get the right people. I'll put you in touch with the right people.
Perfect. Hyde?
Yes, same. We have an elected reps email box, and you can also contact me as well.
Great. And L&Q?
Yeah, it's members inquiries at lqgroup.org.uk, but I would encourage you to contact the Neighbourhood Housing League.
Can you share?
Of course I can.
Yeah, we'll send an email to collect all of that information, but it's just useful to understand the processes of all the different organisations. Okay, yeah.
Just ask them, because I think that's really helpful to get all of these. I'm in a privileged position. I can probably get some of these, and I have used some of these in the past, but it'd be very useful if you're happy that we share it with all the other councillors in Southwark as well, and we just got your permission to do that. So
yeah, so the context behind this question before I open it to others is that as councillors, we knock on doors, and co-opted members, you've probably heard this story too, we'll hear an issue, we're really keen on taking up the issue, and then we'll email I don't know, maybe the neighborhood person on the kind of board that's in the estate, we won't get a response for really long, or we'll go through MPs and councillors' inquiry. Sometimes they're really good at responding quite quickly, and other times they just don't respond at all. And so we're always trying to look at how can we escalate this as high as possible for the issue to be taken as seriously as possible. So that's the context behind the question, but it's good just understanding how you all operate. I guess we didn't touch on response times, but you can provide that when you provide the details to us in terms of when we expect a response by, and what the time frame typically is for your organisations. Councillor Livingston, you had your hand up for questions.
Yeah, no, I was going to just different topic, but it's about damp and mould, and because I mean it's useful to hear all of your processes you put in place in terms of AHAB's law. I mean, for me, you see, there's lots of damp and mould cases. You kind of got some where they're probably relatively easy to sort out, at least in the short term. You got others where there's, you know, a complex underlying case, which might be in some cases a structural issue, in other cases it might be levels of overcrowding. So really just to understand what your processes are in particularly those sort of cases, and roughly what proportions you think, you know, I know putting you on the spot, but to give it a guess about, you know, what proportion is down to overcrowding, what proportion is down to a real structural issue to do with the building. Of those damp and mould cases you get through.
We'll start off with the housing association that has the most stock in the borough. So let's start with Peabody.
I would say that ventilation is often the biggest issue, and education for residents is something that we need to work on. And I think jointly it's something that we all need to work on, because often, you know, ventilation is the biggest cause of mould and overcrowding in properties. So I think we need to understand better over time, and I think data is going to help us do that. And I think that with AWAB's law being in place, we're asking a lot of the right questions, and we're going to get the data on that over time. I think we can then understand and the properties where overcrowding is an issue and think of alternative options of how we can support residents in those properties. There's a lot of devices that are available out there, different PIV systems, different units.
PIV?
Ventilation systems, so they'll take in the kind of humidity, and often there's new ones out there at the moment that also kind of like iodinize, so they kill the mold within the property. So there are solutions. I think that we have to learn a lot more about and test and trial those solutions to understand what will serve our residents in the long run. But I think that by having better data from the surveys that we're now carrying out, we'll be able to understand who needs that support.
Thank you. L&Q?
Vicky?
Very similar to Peabody, we are collating a lot more of the data now. So since we went live with AWAB's law, we're asking more questions, we're doing more intrusive surveys, and we're starting to collate that data. So I haven't got exact numbers on what would be, as you just asked the question there, on would it be overcrowding or the ventilation is definitely one of the higher ones for us. And like Peabody, we are looking at other technologies. We've got sensors in live, just over 10,000 sensors in our homes across all of our stock, and we can monitor that humidity and temperature to see where the issues are, and we work with our residents on that education piece. And like I said at the beginning, the education with our residents and working with them to understand what is happening in the home and what's happening to the asset itself, are the repairs are getting done. And I think, like your colleague saying earlier, around making sure that those repairs are completed and then we know that they are completed is a big part of that. But also we are seeing that overcrowding is a big part of the ventilation, and many people, we produce lots of moisture. The moisture is in the home, and it's how we make sure that we can work with our residents on that.
Good. Is anyone doing something different that hasn't been mentioned around damp and mold that they might want to mention? Yeah, Southern.
I don't know about different, but it's just trying to use what we do in everyday general repairs to try and give us a sense of what's happening across our portfolio nationwide. So we install an extractor fan, and a lot of damp and mold cases, it's a lack of ventilation. So the extractor fan that we install is the same whether it's a reactive repair, whether it's in our capital investment, whether it's in a void property, and that has a data logger built into it. So it starts to give us a picture of where the strain and the stress is, and depending on how many residents are living in a property, which is a key factor in this, the archetype of the property, their use, and the strain on those extractor fans gives us a build-up of good data to then tackle it. But we'll learn more as that goes down the road. It's worth mentioning though, nobody else has mentioned, but we are in part some of our other housing associations in G15. We're in an AWAB's law group that we meet regularly and talk about what we're doing, how we're approaching different things, and we've actually got a workshop at Peabody's office on Friday this week to talk about best practice.
All of you be there, or some of you have not been invited?
It's been set up. It was a G15 subgroup.
What's G15? It sounds like the biggest nations in the world.
So it was originally the 15 biggest landlords in London. Funnily enough, there's only 11 of them now, but it's still called a G15, and it's about sharing best practice in different groups. So there's one for AWAB's law. I think there's one for disrepair as well, ADR, and then there's an overarching one around housing issues and other.
And how often do you meet, just out of interest?
So we meet on at least a monthly basis, but depending on when AWAB's laws obviously came out, and then the next phase we took it to every fortnight to then have further discussions. But yeah, there's a workshop on Friday to try and look at best practice, and if there's housing associations that aren't there, but we've got good ideas in the room, we're happy to share with anybody that's interested. So
Equally, I'm sure some of the smaller ones would have a thing or two to contribute.
Yeah,
So hopefully there'll be a forum, which Southwark might be a facilitator of through our conversations, to ensure that we're learning from all of the housing associations. And
yeah, we'll put our name down for that.
Cool. Just a question from me. I know others will have. You have board meetings, and I'm sure at your board meetings you have like long-standing items that you constantly are discussing, and probably keep some of you up at night, or on your risk registers. Board members consistently ask about. It would just be good to rattle around to understand what those issues are, and why some of them are really difficult for you to deal with, and what you're trying to do to rectify those difficulties. We'll start with Hexagon.
Okay, so development and building remediation have been on top of the list for a while because of the risks and the costs, etc. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got some way through our building remediation, so that's coming lower down the list. But we still do have issues around development that we need to keep a close eye on. In terms of services to our customers, I would say that complaints and repairs are the next on the list that the board pays particular attention to. And we also have, the reason why I don't have my colleagues with me today, this very evening we have our Customer Services Committee, and complaints, repairs and ASB, those are the issues that they go through in more detail at the Customer Services Committee.
So I think we have some similar sorts of issues as well. I think as similar sized, smaller organisations, we've got particular challenges around capacity to be able to do all of the transformation, all of the works that we want to do as well. I think one particular issue that's quite significant for us in Southwark is around where we've had properties, blocks that were built in sort of the early part of this century, where there's been some quite major issues with them. So as well as the cladding and the remediation works, we've also having to replace heat networks, plant rooms as well. So having to invest significant amounts of money within those properties to make good there from the original defects there, and not having recourse to where the original developer is no longer in existence as well. So we're having to pay out millions for some of these blocks, which is then impacting on our investment in other areas, and it also sucks out organisational capacity to deal with other things. So there's a real issue that we've got with a relatively small team to be able to manage all of those while also transforming the repair service and creating a damp and mould service and everything else. We don't have the level of resource and people to be able to draw upon of some others. So that then has that knock-on effect around the other services, but also repairs and complaints are the two big issues for us at the moment.
Clarion, thank you.
Very similar to colleagues. I think complaints, satisfaction. We, like Hexagon, have a customer committee, so everything goes there before it gets to board, and then board pick and choose what they want to highlight, I guess, and prioritise. Regen and development. So over in Merton and Bromley, we've got lots of regen schemes as part of our stock transfer agreement with them. So they keep me awake at night, certainly. But again, I think most of those will be most of the same issues will come out across the board this evening. AWAB's law definitely in compliance across those big areas as well.
Thank you. Notting Hill Genesis.
Yeah, much similar to what's been said, but also some our third-party managed sites or with our external managed agents. That's been quite a challenge for us to ensure we are getting all of our compliance documents, to ensure the safety of all our residents. And that is still a work in progress, you know, and it's a never-ending cycle, because as soon as you get 100%, then one goes out of date and you have to go back and start the process again. So like what everyone else is going to say about that, we have quite a large amount of third-party sites, so it is quite a challenge for us.
Hyde.
Very similar. We operate operational risk registers that feed up onto the strategic registers and then into the board. And those strategic things are very, very broad, so they cover many topics. But I was going to share some of the things that we're now putting on as an emerging risk, which might be relevant to this group. So one of the biggest things is we still have Rydens on our watch list in terms of they are remediating a number of buildings for us, and we struggle to understand how they can keep going. So we constantly are monitoring Rydens. And I think the second thing that might be quite useful is...
Can you tell us who are Rydens?
Rydens were the original Grenfell contractor.
Aha.
And they are remediating buildings, probably for a lot of us in the room. And they are a concern, because none of us can quite understand how they can afford to remediate all these buildings. So they're constantly on our watch list, basically. I'm sure many others are struggling with Thames Water across London at the moment. Lots of low pressure across lots of buildings, which is causing huge amounts of unrest. Not so much in this area, but we've got lots and lots of leaks. Their standard response seems to be it is the building's owner's problem, and they're not owning up to the low pressure that they're supplying into the buildings. And I think the other one for me is recruitment and retention. I don't think it is as simple as whether you insource your directly employed labour organisation or you outsource. The supply of good quality labour in London is very challenging.
Okay. In other words, other housing associations are nicking your staff.
And likewise. And lunch.
Guinness, and probably Southwark Council. Guinness and then Southwark.
Yeah, hi. Pretty similar themes to our colleagues. So some of the main bits that we continuously review and are heavily scrutinised and reviewed at board level is our compliance and our delivery in line with AWAB's law, and ultimately the driving changes that we've seen as part of that, the increase in the volume of emergencies. We're probably taking a very risk adverse approach. So we are actually deeming a lot more jobs as an emergency now, which is having an impact on our turnaround times and our delivery. But we'd rather take that approach to make sure that we're addressing issues and mitigating any potential risks for residents. Another one that we've got is our contractors. We do deliver a hybrid model. So we do have a very big in-house direct labour organisation team that deliver around about 96% of our works now internally. So we've had quite a big shift over the last 12 months where it was around about 82%. We do still sub out around about 4% work, 4-5% worth of works at the moment. And we have just kicked off a market engagement piece to review our current supply chain model and how we can further enhance that to drive better resident engagement and better resident satisfaction moving forwards. That links nicely into communication. That is one of the key drivers that we really are targeting moving forwards, again with our own internal in-house teams, but also with our supply chain. We have recently rolled out additional systems to provide full transparency and visibility of all works that are sat with our internal teams, just so we can track that through to full completion. And also we've moved away from the management of subcontractor works across multiple systems into one central system to provide full visibility.
So I think the obvious one is our Web's Law. And I'm actually being asked to do a presentation to our board and ET executive team next week on the impact and what we've seen in the first 3 months. We've financed our damp and mould team up to the tune of over £4 million per year spent on damp and mould alone, and that along with disrepair claims and other such things will divert our investments. And you know, the fact that redevelopment has had to take a bit of a knock over the last couple of years, the challenge I think for the board and members would be around finance, the main thing. But yeah, it's balancing all of those priorities really.
In a slightly different way. So our executive group director basically has a forum of top 10 oldest cases. So it will be damp and mould, ASB, repairs. It will be absolutely everything across the piece. And each sort of senior leader from that team will present the information to him. So it's definitely at that radar in terms of on the radar of the board. But we have that every month, and that's chaired by the group executive director. Equally, around sort of things that keep us up at night, we'll have a meeting every Thursday within housing management, and we'll talk about those localised issues, for instance Thames Water, those type of cases, and then that will be progressed up the channel, up the chain, sorry. So similar to those guys that have mentioned about the board stuff, but we have a bit more of a localised effort around sort of what keeps us up at night, because ultimately what happens is if the residents experience it, the frontline people are going to hear it. So again, that's how we sort of feed it up. So a slightly different answer.
The biggest in Southwark, we are. So 3 things I would say: building safety. So 75% of our buildings are over 11 meters. So that's a big challenge for us. Obviously, the repair service, because of the linked complaints, they're the biggest driver for complaints. So obviously, we're keen to get on top of that. And obviously, financial sustainability, the cost pressures, inflation, obviously needing to be more efficient. So I would say broadly, those will be the 3 main things that our board are grappling with.
Thank you. We'll bring in Ketsia Harper, then Ina, then Councillor Livingston, and Brendan. But just by a show of hands, just to understand, it's been mentioned around investment into housing in the borough, particularly around new builds. Just by a show of hands, in the next 2 to 5 years, any intention of new builds from any of you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Can I just say for us, it's existing pipeline. So we can do
That's included. Okay, so quite a sizable amount. Okay, good. Yep, Councillor Harper.
That's fine. So it was really, thank you all so much for coming and giving presentations. It was great. In a lot of your data, you didn't really drill down into the difference in terms of complaints or repairs for social rented and kind of private leasehold buildings, which I can understand probably the processes are broadly similar. But I was wondering if any of you are collecting that data, and it's kind of for two reasons. One is obviously from Southwark's point of view, the people kind of who are on our waiting list who are going into social rented homes. There's kind of a connection and a bit more of responsibility for us in terms of their experience. But also, and I don't imagine I'm the only councillor who's experienced this, I have been to housing association properties and I have been into one building and thought this all looks fine, and gone into another building where there's quite clear repair issues, and that has inevitably been the one where there's more social rented accommodation. And I don't know if that's because people who are in social rented housing are complaining less, are reporting repairs less, or whether or not there is actually a difference in systems and how these are dealt with and managed, who's making complaints, who's more likely to kind of escalate when there is a problem. I was just interested to see if any of that was things you were kind of looking at, trying to manage. Yes, that's kind of a question, and I was wondering if any of you could speak to it, if that's okay.
So we can provide that information and break it down as well. The majority of our blocks where we do have shared ownership and mixed tenure as well, so you won't necessarily see a difference from one block to another. So we've only got, I think 3 different blocks where they are fully solo tenure like that as well. So most of them do have that mixture, so you won't necessarily see any variance around that. We do tend to have slightly higher rates of complaints from shared owners, but mostly those complaints relate to service charges and Section 20 processes rather than the property itself, except for those blocks where there are more significant sort of building failure issues as well. And we do have 2 of those in Southwark at the moment, and that's where, again, it's not a difference of experience for the rental customers or the shared owners. It's the same for everybody within those, because we are having to replace cladding, heat networks, balconies, and many other parts of those ones as well.
Yes, Genesis.
Just in terms of, again, we haven't got that data to hand, but we can supply it and we can analyze it and have a look. But there isn't a difference between how a leaseholder would access sort of our repairs service for the communal repairs, unless it goes obviously over the Section 20 threshold, and there we have to consult. Historically, within Notting Hill Genesis, there was, the property managers would manage the repairs locally, where the general needs housing officers would have the tier 1 contractors who would do all that repairs. But we've mirrored that for residents, so there shouldn't be a difference in how they access the repairs, but we can provide the data and have a look.
Yes.
We do collect the data. I don't have it with me because we disaggregate it for some reports and not for others. But we've only got 300 to 400 leaseholders compared to 4,500. So the figures are kind of skewed by that. I do think that there are some differences. We do find if we have got a mixed tenure block, that there will be different types of complaints that will come from those constituencies. We definitely get far more issues around service charges from leaseholders than we do from tenants. I do think that there are some issues around the customer profile in those tenures being different. I mentioned earlier that, in recent years, we are seeing far higher numbers of residents being referred to us that have got very high multiple support needs. And when families are under stress, they don't necessarily find time to be going to their housing association over, that carpet hasn't been cleaned in the past week. So I think that there are some differences in terms of the customer profile, and also leaseholders having a financial stake and the value of the property them having a stake in that. So we will get more around how the neighbourhood is managed, how the estate is cleaned, the level of the service charges. That comes over more strongly, I would say, without seeing the data from leaseholders with their small number in comparison to tenants. But I'd need to get the data to support that. But anecdotally, that's what I pick up from things that are escalated to me.
Anybody?
So just for context, just under 60% of our homes are social rents, actually. So it just gives you a sense of, most of our stock is actually social rent. The service is the same, but usually, I guess, again, it depends on the setup, location. So we do experience sometimes different challenges in different estates, but that really just depends on location or the circumstances within that neighborhood as opposed to tenure.
L&Q, we're interested to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, so we run lots of data off of kind of complaints. So again, we can break them down into the tenures, by scheme, by borough, by development, etc. But in addition to that, we've done quite a lot of work in terms of we have complaint operatives that work within that stage 1 indirect maintenance in terms of going out again where a resident might have experienced several operatives attending. So again, they're like a specialised team that particularly deal with complaints. In addition to that, one of the other things that we're doing is actually at stage 1 where they're complex. So for example, health and safety, vulnerabilities, roofing, etc., which obviously can have kind of knock-on effects in terms of damp and mould, etc., is we now manage those through to completion. I haven't got the data for Southwark, but from April to December last year, we had 507 cases that were managed through that, and only 43 of those have been reopened. So there's lots of work, and it's the lessons learned. What we're trying to do through the models that we've got is to try and kind of, through those lessons learned, is again come up with kind of what the issues are across the board. That's not just complaints, but also DM escalations in terms of any escalations that go to a member of our exec group within the organisation, is how we manage those lessons learned, case reviews out of that, so we can really develop the service kind of in terms of our repair service.
Did any other organisation want to add their piece on that yet? Guinness?
Just to add to it, we can, similar to everybody else, we can break it down into the level of detail by scheme, by borough, etc. I suppose some of the bits that we do also do separately, we do routinely do estate inspections. So we've got teams that are out on the ground that are walking on a routine basis that will engage with residents to understand, are there any issues, so we can raise those escalations internally and on a proactive basis. We can also pick up where jobs haven't been raised and where residents potentially need that additional level of support, or they're not confident in being able to raise those works to us. So we have kind of that proactive approach, and then where we do have complaints that come through, individual case managers goes through level 1 up to a level 2, and then it will get escalated through to the relevant director, or all the way up to the CEO if need be. So it does get the ownership that's actually needed to see things through to completion.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, I think it'll be very good to get that data and really understand also what the response times are between those who are, I guess, socially rented, in socially rented properties compared to those who are leaseholders. I think that will help contextualize that for us. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some reassurance really that the tenant satisfaction measures does push you in that direction to cut the data and to understand the different tenure types. And we all are used to recutting and re-looking at different sources of information. Some of the interesting things that we find are customers are one of our lowest measures are, does a customer feel safe in their home? And quite often that is about the realm rather than just inside their four walls. And that's a real challenge for us to resolve. And the cleanliness of the communal spaces, and a lot of that can be about the tenure of the blocks and those sorts of things that go on. So there are some real challenges in there that we need to do. Our systems are no different. We regularly monitor the performance of repairs across a communal area, so it picks up those sorts of issues as well. So we're all cutting it. I think there are still some things where a little bit of collaboration in terms of what we do with the realm to make a person feel safer would be a good thing to look at.
I'm going to go on a high note. So do you have a success story you want to share with Southwark? And the second question would be, in an ideal world, what would you like, or how would you like Southwark to help you for improving your services or getting closer? So those are the two questions.
Start with Southern. Go for it.
All right, again, with the permission of both Jason and Ina, rather than put you on the spot tonight, would it be an idea to send you off for a little bit of homework? And you go back and think two things. One, what could you guys do for Southwark? And B, you know, what could you as housing association providers offer Southwark? And the other side is, what could Southwark do for you best? And it would be very interesting to hear the commission, because we've been getting a lot of facts and figures and information, and you're all going to have to think on the spot, and you might be going home or cycling home or getting a bus or driving and saying, actually, what I should have said was. So would it be an idea, if Ina was happy with that, would you be happy with that, Ina? Jason?
Yeah, just a quick gander. But I think that would be good. But yes, some homework for you. You've been given homework. But yes, we'll start with Southern very quickly.
Can I 100% back that idea? Because not only are we on the spot, I actually have to get a train up to Liverpool
Okay.
now. So
Well, if you do need to dash, please do. At the appropriate time.
Because it's the last train.
No,
back
that's
up.
okay.
So, but yeah, absolutely, we'll continue to engage. We'll share any data that you need, and we'll look forward to those questions.
Very quickly, Guinness, Notting Hill.
Yeah, I have one. The success story, I'm sure there are lots, but I'll have to think about that. In terms of one specific I can think of, is about how we might help each other more reciprocally around housing. So I know that one of my team have been reaching out to someone in the council where we're desperately trying to rehome somebody from one of our schemes in Tower Hamlets, and Southwark is one of the only boroughs that she can move to for lots of reasons. It's a complex case, but we haven't managed to get in touch with anybody to talk about any kind of reciprocal agreement. So I think it's that kind of communication both ways would be really helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, we've got a success story. So we had a safeguarding case, which was also around cuckooing, and we were able to rehouse the individual. But our safeguarding lead, who was kind of supporting us with the case, he said that he found the neighbourhood police team really helpful in terms of monitoring the cuckooing risk, and the local police had really good knowledge, which was a massive help to the case, because he knew where to find the individual when the individual wasn't at their place of residence. So yeah.
So you don't need any help from Southwark then?
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back on that.
From our perspective, so good news story. We've done lots and lots of really good work with Bromley Police, which we've been in contact with Councillor Ennin about in terms of cuckooing. So we know that cuckooing is going to be high on the agenda moving forward, and we're happy to share all of our learning through working in partnership with Bromley Police with yourselves, and we've offered that out already. So I think that's really, really positive. In terms of how we can support each other, I think, just those regular meetings, the regular communication between us all is definitely going to help build that relationship and benefit all of our residents.
Okay. So in terms of a success story, we've recently introduced a resident liaison post to work across two particular blocks in Camberwell. We've got the highest rates of issues, both in terms of property, but also ASB and other tenancy issues. And she's done an amazing job in starting to really rebuild a good sense of sort of trust and relationship with customers in those blocks as well. So that's a model that we want to also then try and replicate further out. In terms of support from Southwark, I think for me the big thing is around ASB, and where we've got blocks next door to Southwark blocks, things around that. Actually, how can we work more effectively in partnership? Because sometimes there's issues where the perpetrator might be a Wandle tenant, but it's impacting your block or vice versa as well. And how can we think more around particular neighbourhoods to create that sense of safety where we all have a vested interest in that?
Southwark have been exceptionally helpful to Hexagon. And two great things which we really, really appreciate. We're developing 4 to 6 homes on Old Kent Road. We had the issue in terms of the requirements because of the Bakerloo line. And you all supported the seal application, which has unlocked that scheme. It was a huge problem, significant figure, and you were very, very kind and generous to support us with a seal grant, so that we can unlock that both for our scheme and also for, I'm sure that, the Bakerloo line and Transport for London would also be grateful. But also the staff were exceptionally helpful on our schemes. We had a site which is actually on the Lewisham side of the Old Kent Road, where there was an issue with a substation which was on the Southwark side. And the staff, each time we've had a call, they've been absolutely exceptionally helpful and in helping us to resolve those things. So there are 2 really good news stories. To de-risk development, we want to focus on Section 106s. We know that you have a number of sites in the borough that needs RP partners to unlock.
RP being residential partners.
Sorry?
RP being...
Sorry, registered providers.
Resident providers.
Housing associations. We're moving in that direction. We do need to, we do want to work with developers who are building to the standards that we want. We have to iron out service charges and getting them to behave on landlord health and safety and all of those things. But that is an area where I feel that we can have closer working with Southwark to influence those developers to develop to the standard that housing associations will be willing to purchase those units when they are developed.
Peabody, a couple of success stories. So drop-in repair surgeries have been very popular in Southwark. So one of the things that we've been doing is, rolling out repairs days. So essentially people can just drop in. We'll have contractors. Usually the information that we have tells us maybe there's some issues in those particular schemes. So we get our contractors there, and that's proved very popular. On our Blackfriars estate, working with the residents there, supported by Peabody Community Foundation and Seeds for Growth. We've been working with the community there to develop a community-led garden. So that's good for well-being. There's a bit of space within the estate, and that's proved very popular as well. In terms of the ask from Southwark, I think this is one of it. Is one of the biggest registered providers in Southwark. Our engagement with Southwark hasn't been where we need it to be. So this is just a call out to all the councillors and the offices at Southwark that it would be useful for us to have ongoing engagement.
So I think we have minor miracles every day, but the issue is it's about someone from Southwark, someone from the registered providers team working really hard to deliver that minor miracle. And I think the thing that I'd ask us all to do is, can we make it easier for those people?
What can do for you?
I think both the RP and Southwark, so us lot, sometimes we make it difficult to engage with each other, and we need to work out how we stop that so that 2 officer level people can make real engagement and differences in local areas.
So we will have, we can kind of come back to you on some of the success housing stories, but I think one of the things that we wanted to kind of talk about is we've worked really closely last year and this year around our trade apprenticeship programme with the schools in Southwark. Obviously what we want to try and also do is get more females into trades. So again, if there's any kind of girls' schools that you can kind of help us with in terms of kind of developing that. Obviously there's a shortfall in terms of trades retiring over the next kind of 10 years. I think it's 1/3 of all trades will retire. So, we've got a really good programme in terms of delivering 70 apprentices, but we're working really closely with schools in Southwark, going out, kind of talking about our programme, but also kind of happy to work with schools, colleges, etc. around, you know, if they want us to kind of run sessions. We're also looking at holding an event at L&Q just to promote that, but also going out to residents within the boroughs as well, who might be interested in kind of a trade apprenticeship.
Thank you. Brendan, you had a question.
Rather than question, Jason, again, with your with your permission, could I share some feedback from this side of the table to you guys, considering that, you know, because I think it's been very helpful this evening. It's very interesting to see the collaboration. I mean, it's you're not coming in here on a scrutiny. It's to see basically what we can share. And some things that did kind of speak to me or stand out was the fact that you've come about AWAB's law, repair response time, damper mode, ASB, and community safety. And I think this gentleman kind of got it in one that when he spoke about that for people to feel safe in their homes, that it's very much about the realm being their internal homes, the external communal space, their own estates, and neighbouring things. So it's good to see that recognised. One of the big challenges, and hopefully we'll feed this back again to Hakeem and his team, and is the idea of doing a triage, a risk assessment, and a repair. That's you're all doing them probably some way, but it would be good to have a very formal and structured and probably quite same approach to it. It's interesting that there's a lot of commonality in your challenge. AWAB's law and the regulator social housing oversight seems to be a catalyst for a lot of your initiatives. I think in a world of ever increasing standards and compliance requirements, that's going to happen more and more, where there's going to have to be collaboration, and again how that improves performance and improves outcome will be interesting. I think it's very easy to see the huge challenges and to see how difficult stuff is to progress or to fix. But there are some wins. The idea of having estate champions, that's a really good idea. Somebody mentioned that they've retrained all their existing contractors to focus on customer satisfaction. That's something Southwark should certainly be looking at, I think, and everyone, I think, it's a good idea, because people that are in the job for a long time, they sort of say, done it, seen it, know it. And sometimes it's good to have a fresh look at it. It was very encouraging to hear the tenants and leaseholders and shared ownership people being spoken as customers, because very often the relationship is that the council or the housing associations, you provide a service, you provide a house, and the consumer standards does apply. And sometimes people don't really maybe get that to the extent they should. Someone mentioned one point of contact for residents to report, repair, and chase it. That's fantastic, because it's something that I know that in Southwark we're maybe struggling a bit to connect the resident service team with the repairs team, as to have a closed loop who will identify a repair and own repair until it's completed to satisfaction. The idea then of sending out messages to anyone who's ever had a problem in damp and mold, someone mentioned, that's a great idea, I think. Guinness mentioned rolling out the video diagnostics, following up on repairs with written summaries. Again,
Brendan,
that's fantastic. Sorry,
I know a number of questions, a number of comments. Any questions?
It's really to kind of pull in all the good ideas and to put them, to share them, and then to have those good ideas shared with Southwark to make everyone's life that bit easier and that bit nicer. Really, that the question would be how you could maybe address that.
Any comments from anyone? Yes, Wandel.
Well, I think the fact that we're all here is a really good starting point as well. I think it's about how we can make sure we have the continuation of the forum that we've already discussed with Hakeem previously, to make sure that this happens, so that we do meet on a regular basis. We really think about how do we share that practice and what are the opportunities for doing things collaboratively. So certainly from my perspective as a smaller organisation, there's a limit to what we can do, but actually where there's the opportunity to do something jointly with some of the large providers around that, and actually how we can then share some of that resource, again, is probably a good way forward for us.
Thank you. Peabody?
Yeah, just a comment. It'd also be interesting for us to know what challenges Southwark is grappling with. And I know you've heard from us but it'd also be useful, I mean, over time, just to also understand the things that you're facing difficult with, because in that there might be opportunities in terms of, okay, how can we work together? So, I mean.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you. Yeah, no, my sort of question sort of links back to Ina's question and some of the responses that you gave. So it was really about the relationship between you and the council in two particular areas. So firstly, wearing my hat as chair of planning committee, but also representing a ward where there's a lot of redevelopment going on. One of the things that we've noticed is that we're finding a number of developments going ahead where developers are saying, oh, we'll provide social housing, other affordable housing, and then are having difficulty getting registered providers to come on board. I kind of get that because you've got some of the same financial challenges that the council does in terms of things like AREB's law and fire safety and all of those things, creating financial pressures for you. But just to understand, so in terms of that planning space, is there anything that we can be doing to make that easier? Is there anything we should be looking at when we look at planning applications to ensure that we are approving things which are most likely to get an RP on board? So that's the first bit of my two-part question. The other one was, I think all of you have some relationship with the council's allocations process. Some of you have 100% nominations from the council. Some of you sort of have a sort of your own system plus take nominations. So just to understand how that works and whether there's any places there that we can make that system work better.
Good. Well, yes, we'll start with Hexagon.
Your first question is very dear to my heart. We got out of the gate quite early with our building remediation, and you know, within the sector we know that London Housing Associations, Manchester, any highly urbanised area has had huge challenges in terms of how much capital that has sought. And we have had to slow down our development like everyone else. The fortunate thing for Hexagon is we got out early. So we had very, very low interest cover. We've almost recovered back to 100%. And, you know, so over the past 3 years, it's crept up. We should be back over the line by next year. We are intending to go back out into the market within the next 18 months or so. And that's why we're now ready to start those conversations. So we did pull back like others did for a while. I think that there was one story, but we can't go ahead right now because of those reasons. But we are now, in terms of the timing, anything that's going to be completed by 2028, from 2028, we can start having those serious discussions. Where I think it might be where Southwark may be of help, is just bringing us together. Because we don't know all of them. You know, we don't have a relationship with all of them. They don't necessarily know that we're in the market. But having a place where we can have those conversations about what hasn't been working on the Section 106 for housing associations, and just to hear from them directly whether they are aware of those challenges, whether they're working on those challenges, and if we can start building trust from the ground up, I think that as a broker of those relationships, that could be quite helpful. On the allocations, I think 100% of ours goes through the council, I believe.
Any others?
I think from Clarion's perspective, we're 85% on nominations. I guess we ask that nominations are provided as quickly as possible to allow us to let voids as quickly as possible, which in turn helps your housing register and reduces numbers quicker. So we're going through a bit of a change process with our available homes team at the moment. We've moved them out of regions into national teams, and then there's a big focus on reducing void turnaround times, reducing void numbers, target of reduction.
On that, would you say we're a bit slow?
I wouldn't say you're slow. I would say that there's often complexities around individuals that we obviously rightly need to consider when we come to letting properties. So, but you're not alone, and that's similar for most boroughs. So yeah, just the speed in which we receive the nominations, I think.
No, no, I think we're smaller, obviously. Sorry, sorry. But I think for allocations, I think one of the things, and I think this is something maybe we can all sort of reflect on how we can work together. Is we really want to look at how we can utilise our existing homes for our existing residents and help to reduce overcrowding through encouraging and facilitating more transfers while still maintaining our nominations agreements and using kind of a more proactive approach to do that. I know we've had some success in this area as well, so you've obviously supported with that, but that's our focus.
Yeah, I was going to make a similar point around sort of the transfer. So we have 100% nominations across all of our stock across all 9 boroughs as well. So it also makes it quite difficult when there's the need to do any kind of management transfer as well. And we do have a lot of people where they are overcrowded in their homes, but the lack of other properties for them to move into makes it really challenging as well. And then that exacerbates the damp and mold issues and other parts of it. But certainly I think actually I don't have any issue in terms of the speed of the nominations coming through, and our turnover is really low across all our homes. We only had 153 lets last year as well, and that's been quite a steady state. So people do tend to stay because there's not a huge number for them to move into. In terms of the development issue, again, we are developing. It's not a huge amount. We're looking at about 150 homes per year. The main problem that we have is about cost around that, and actually just trying to get the schemes to stack up. Because we don't have the same level of resource as others, and we can't take on some of the larger schemes. And we're also only looking really at places where we can have the freehold or at least a whole block to have that control, because otherwise we found some really significant problems with management agreements otherwise as well. So we have steered away from those for any future development.
I think our focus is likely around investing on existing homes. So our ability to kind of like delve into development is quite limited. I think we're trying to focus on existing homes to make sure that they are suited for our residents. In terms of allocations and lettings within my South region, I have 11 boroughs. Southwark is in one of the areas that I have issues with when it comes to allocations and lettings. So I guess it's a positive story, but I think I would always welcome opportunities for my local teams to engage with Southwark. Better relationships on the ground. Hill?
Yeah, so like Peabody, although we are still committed to developing in London, but the focus is on investing in our existing homes and making best use of our current homes. So similar to Guinness in terms of how we can facilitate more internal transfers to get residents into the right size home for them, which will help alleviate some of the pressures from damp and mold that we've seen today, but also the pressures that we get from elected members, MPs and councillors coming to us to try and help facilitate these moves. So it's not a no from Notting Hill Genesis in terms of our development, and Councillor Livingston, I will get some of our development colleagues to give me some answers to that specific question you posed.
So if it's okay, because none of us are actually from development, if we can take that back and get the answers for you, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I think it's similar, but a lot of times our development pipeline is probably 5 years in the making. So a lot of it is about the opportunities and where they're going to be in 5 years. I'm more than happy to get the development team to come speak to you guys, see where we're going with it. I would absolutely agree with the flexibility of the moves though, because we are not going to solve under and overcrowding just through normal avoid and letting process. So we need to do something a bit different.
Thank you. So before this, we an email went round to all elected members about issues that they pick up on the doorstep that they would like us to flag today. And we had a huge amount of response. And one of the common issues was spiraling costs of service charge. So you buy a home as a leaseholder that you think is affordable, and then all of a sudden the service charges just spiral out of control, and you're paying thousands and thousands of pounds. Are you able to speak to why that might be? A common theme that's come out of that is auditing, where auditors are taking a much longer time to look at books, and therefore that's influencing the ultimate service charge that ends up coming out, but much later than planned, and people can't really financially plan. Are people around the table able to speak to if that is something that's come across your desk? I'm particularly thinking about L&Q and Hyde, and possibly Peabody. But yes, if you could speak to that, that would be very helpful. And there are other issues that I will flag, because I think I might be stoned when I come out of here if I don't mention them.
Might as well go first, then.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, I think service charge is a very difficult topic. I mean, as a fundamental principle, we're not allowed to subsidise any of those properties in any way, shape, or form. So if there is a valid cost due to the management or work in any of those types of properties, we have to forward that cost on. I wouldn't agree with the auditing point, actually. It's not something that I would say is driving costs. I would say a number of things are driving the costs up. That's the increasing regulation that we're going through at the moment. And I think we will continue to go through that for a number of years. And I think the insurance market has been able, unfortunately, to capture a space, and they've increased their premiums quite significantly. We also did have an episode where we were buying our fuel at the same time as Russia was invading Ukraine, and the prices of fuel spiked in that particular window. Now, we were caught by that. We couldn't do anything about it. We had to purchase fuel in that period. We are now through that, and some of the customers are benefiting from lower fuel costs now. But yeah, we're not allowed to subsidise that 10-year term.
Thank you. Just L&Q, Peabody.
So obviously we're doing a lot of work around being transparent around service charges, but I think it really boils down to the product itself, being part rent, being part, owner. And I think usually with shared ownership, I think that the responsibilities around the home ownership part, perhaps maybe we could do more in helping, our shared owners understand those responsibilities. Obviously Mark's point, we cannot subsidize our homeowners. So if we can be transparent about the true service charges, actually, I think it goes from the outset. I think perhaps being realistic, even though it might result in other aspiring homeowners or shared owners not being able to get those homes. I think there's a lot of work to do around the product itself.
Just on that point, I think communications with residents and them understanding the context behind why things might be happening, and if there is a plan in the near future to increase their service charge at a percentage that's abnormal, it's worth them probably knowing months, if not years in advance, to say, look, this is on the horizon. It's worth putting this on the horizon as a potential cost that might creep in the next year, 2, possibly 3. But I think you make a good point around communication, and Hyde, you've mentioned the same too. L&Q, and then we'll move on to another question.
What we need to do is take that one away, if that's all right, and refer that back to our service tech, because I've got the kind of in terms of what we do in terms of the breakdown, and again, obviously insurance is one of the key things around that. But in to ensure that you get the right answer, if we can take that back and come back to you on that.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Yes, Ina.
I would recommend that you talk to Southwark, because Southwark is the best freeholder in whole UK. They could break down the service charges to job level. So sharing success stories, what I would advise is to talk to Southwark and see how they did it and get the same service level. But they have been absolutely amazing.
Question on jobs and contractors. So something that's come out, and I've had experience of this. I don't live in the a housing association, but issues that I've raised and has been escalated is someone would say, "Oh, we're coming to do a job at X time," and I won't name individual housing associations because I won't name individual housing associations, but you're here, and. But we've raised issues and people have taken time off work. They've waited for the contractor. The contractor just hasn't turned up. And then the resultant answer is, oh, it's the contractor's fault. We tried to call them to come out, but they haven't come out. And it's happened time and time again. Are you able to talk to us about the relationships that you have with contractors, how you hold them to account, when they do this consistently, what it means for your relationship with them and ultimately the resident? Because I think that's where trust ends up breaking down quite quickly between the resident and the housing association when there's a middle party. But it would really just be good to get all of your perspectives on that, because it's an issue that comes up time and time again, and it's disappointing where I will get reassurances, members around the table get reassurances, they're coming out tomorrow, don't worry. 12 o'clock, they're going to be there. 12 o'clock comes, they didn't come. And it happens once, twice, 3 times, and I'm sure it's come across your desk. So it'd be good to hear all of your perspectives on that, please. We'll start off with Hexagon. I'm not saying you're the culprit.
Okay. So at the moment, we Hexagon are wholly reliant on outsourcing our repairs to contractors. And that comes with a degree of cynicism, and this is the reality that I think that we work with when we have that repairs model. Contractors are out there to make the best profit that they can on a contract, and our job is to get the best service for our customers. And we do this dance all the time. If you're managing an outsourced repairs contract, you do this dance all the time to stop them from taking more money than they need to and to increase the quality of the service. So that's the ongoing dance. Some of the things that we are looking at the moment, we recently made a decision, or we've recently implemented the decision to bring our calls back in-house so we can get visibility of what's happening with customers. They do have penalties, they do have targets in terms of right first time. When we had the calls outsourced, and I should say we had a price per property contract, and we 3 or 4 years ago we outsourced the calls with that. They control everything, and we have a connection to their sites to get that data. But we feel that we can get better control by bringing those calls in-house. We're also going through a procurement. We want to work with more smaller local contractors where the value of our work is a bigger proportion of their revenue, because then they attach more importance to you. And I think that that is a unique issue for the smaller to medium housing associations. If their repairs contractors are larger and they've got larger contracts elsewhere, whether they scale up sufficiently and whether they give you the priority that they should to get the jobs done, I don't think it's a model that always works really well for smaller to medium associations. The perfect solution for me is to have an in-house team. I know that there are the risk transfers to you, and there are other issues about recruiting, but where I have brought in-house teams, it has bounced the satisfaction with customers. I think in one experience, it bounced the satisfaction 10 percentile points once it was controlled, because you can create the right culture within the operatives that you want to see. So what we will perhaps be doing is be going for that blended approach. Where we will be reliant. We want smaller, more local contractors that see our business as important and have the same, similar values that we do. Maybe having some smaller in-house service, but it will take some time for us to get there.
Appreciate it. Peabody.
Similar, we probably have our DLO carry out 40% of repairs, and we would like to grow that some more over time. I think a big issue for us is systems. All our tier one contractors, they would subcontract an element of those works, and when those works go to a subcontractor, we don't have the same kind of APIs and the same event codes there. So when they go to a subcontractor, they don't have the live appointing initially, and if there are changes within that appointment, the same text message functionality is not there, so maybe the communication with residents is not as good as it should be. That is something we're working on with our contractors. It's been something that's part of, you know, the tenders every time we go out, and it's a requirement that they say they can deliver, but the IT solution is not there with all of them yet.
Yes, we'll go with that.
So yeah, look, a benefit of a few years. So we used to outsource to a large contractor in London. The satisfaction tanked to 50%, and we made the decision to insource that. Now, what I'd say is it doesn't go away. Yes, there is recruitment issues and, you know, everything like that which everybody deals with. But fundamentally, you need to look at a workforce. Now, if somebody in the office is sick on a particular day, in all honesty, it doesn't have a huge amount of impact on customers or the day-to-day running of the business. As soon as a tradesperson goes off sick for the day, that is potentially 4 or 5 appointments which either need to be reorganised, apologised to, or, you know, we just get a complaint on. And that's entirely valid. But we are in a place at the moment, and I think probably those that have directly employed labour teams will say the same. We average 10 days off, and if you think about 10 days, doesn't sound a great deal, but there's only about 220 working days in a year. You take 10 days out of that, it is a big deal. So a lot of our focus has got to be on trying to maintain the fitness, the health, the well-being of the trades. So even if we get that down to 8 days, that is a significant improvement.
Hi, so we have a in-house repairs and maintenance at L&Q, and our aim is to deliver 80% of the repairs via that direct labour, and then 20% goes out to our contractors. And just what Mark was saying there is exactly what we do suffer with. If we have got, most of our operatives will have 6 appointments in a day. They call in sick, that's 6 potential customers that are going to be left without an appointment if we can't get somebody else in there. So we do have similar problems when it's in-house as we do with our contractors. I think with our contractors, we are holding them to account more. We're doing a procurement exercise at the moment so that we can get really clear KPIs, and where we are letting down our residents, we are being able to penalise our contractors on the contracts that we have with them through that new procurement. But our aim is to deliver the most in-house with our own operatives, but that does come with its own challenges, and recruitment's one of them. And I think my colleague Lisa said earlier, we've now got the apprentice programme, because what we would like to do is train our staff, and with the wellness and the keeping them in L&Q, we would like to, you know, have our own people that will stay with us, and they don't go into, you know, a higher paid job and another housing association's offering a bit more at the moment, so they move around. So it is about that retention and about hopefully delivering that in-house more.
Okay. Wandle, Clarion, Notting Hill, then Genesis.
So we have the in-house team that does about 85% of the work, and like others, when an operative goes off sick, I think it does have that knock-on effect. So even though it's not contracted out, we still have the same kind of issues. But with the new sort of job management system that we're putting in place, it gives more flexibility to be able to cover those more effectively. Our biggest issue is with our gas contractor. So that's the biggest contract that we have, and they provide services in about 5,000 of our homes. And their performance is the bit that we struggle with to manage the most, in all honesty. Trying to then sort of put in place stronger contract management is one of the priorities I've got at the moment, so that we can hold them better to account because that's where we get sort of quite a high proportion of our complaints from at the moment, particularly over the winter period as well. So that's one that we're looking at, as well as try and drive that performance through better contract management.
We have an in-house DLO, and we do roughly about 1,000 repairs a day nationally. The work that we do outsource focuses around our gas work, so boiler repairs, gas servicing, electrical inspections, that kind of stuff. So the compliance pieces. Again, I think similar to others, staff retention is an issue for our repair service. But then those contractors that we do have, again, it's coming back to that very strong contract management and ensuring that we can hold them to account.
Yeah, no, not Genesis. We don't have a direct labour force, so we are reliant on contractors, and they will experience the same problems. If someone off sick, job is overrunning, they're not able to get the jobs. We do have contractual penalties in the contract that we can obviously leverage. We also offer £30 compensation to residents for missed appointment. I've been in Nottingham Genesis for about 15 years. It's been £30 for as long as I've been there. So it is just a gesture of the inconvenience, not designed to recover people who may have missed income or something. And where I have seen it work well, which we sort of have tried to replicate as things have got bigger, it's the co-location. So if we have the contractors who we're reliant on co-locating with our teams, when the officer gets the phone call to say somebody hasn't showed up, they can go to the repairs planner, they can find out what is happening, or they can get notified by the repairs planner straight away that an operative's phoned in sick. We're going to have to rejiggle things around.
Yeah, from a Guinness point of view, one of our biggest focuses over the last 12 months has been around building flexibility into our delivery model. A lot of that we've seen, we've transitioned away from delivering around about 82% of works with our internal teams and subbing 18% out. We're now at a position where we're now delivering roughly 94% of works via our internal teams and only subbing out around about 6% of works. What we see from that, we do get challenges with it that everybody else has mentioned, but it gives us more control, gives us more ownership, more oversight, and more insight in terms of our actual ability to deliver to residents. A couple of other bits that we have done as part of this, and it is an additional cost to the business, but we were seeing on average around about 6% worth of attrition. So we were losing around about 6% of our workforce on an annual basis. Board have approved that we've got our head count that's built into budget, but we're also over recruiting on a routine basis to offset that 6% natural attrition. We've kicked off a procurement exercise. The intention is that we will be condensing our supply chain down using less contractors, pushing more volume, more value of works through them. And we're also looking at, from a market engagement exercise point of view, in extending that relationship out from a procurement point of view to kind of a longer term model where contractors are more heavily invested into the organisation. We've moved to a delivery model now where we're predominantly issuing out your larger disrepair works, major works, complex repair works, but we have also bolstered our internal teams so that we can flex. In the summer months, as an example, when demand drops down, we can deliver more of those major complex disrepair works and also into our empty homes. We've built kind of flexibility into our model to flex our resources from one work stream into another.
Thank you. I don't think we have any other questions from members. Thank you for coming. I think it's been a useful exercise, and hopefully you found a constructive one. And hopefully this will be a forum that we can develop into a stronger one over the longer term. No doubt, I think that what would be super helpful for us as a commission is understanding some of your takeaway thoughts as to how we can work better together as a council. But if you could provide not just details of people that as members we can go to when there are issues, but also I guess how we can provide insights to you, particularly from, for example, resident services officers who are on the ground, who are dealing with multiple issues in areas that concern you, and how we can better kind of cross collaborate on issues. But I know there are some other councillors in the room that will pick up individual issues with some of you afterwards. But I appreciate your time. We appreciate your time as a commission. And I know it's very late, but hopefully you've not found it a waste of your time. So thank you.